following is a special presentation of ESPN on ABC.
For the entire month of May, 33 teams not only struggled to qualify, but then race for 500 miles. And for one, Scott Dixon, it was a perfect day and a perfect month as he won his first ever Indianapolis 500. But now it's 1 week later, and for over 50 years, IndyCars have been coming to the Milwaukee Mile, just outside the city where beer was made famous. Well, someone else will be making history today. Who knows who it will be, as we welcome you to Firestone Race Day here at the Milwaukee Mile as we get ready for race number 6 on the 2008 schedule. Marco Andretti is going to be starting on pole. It's something his father did in his very first race, his first pole here at the Milwaukee Mile back in 1986. And Graham Rahal will be on the outside of the front row. The last time we had an Andretti Rahal front row, that was 1992 at Loudon, New Hampshire. And of course, there's Scott Dixon with wife Emma, still celebrating and reveling in last week's win from Indianapolis.
Scott Dixon's going to regain the lead.
Dixon goes from third to first.
And they continue to make that charge.
Well, you talk about a Sunday drive. It's been that for Scott Dixon today.
You start first, you finish first. It could not get any better.
Bring it home now, bring it home.
Scott Dixon is going to complete his perfect storm with a win at the Indianapolis 500.
The day after Scott Dixon won the Indianapolis 500, champagne sales in his native New Zealand tripled what they had been the year before. Certainly has been a time of celebration. You've been cross-country celebrating and doing media. How do you focus now on this event after the week you've had?
Yeah, you know, first of all, it's been fun. You know, the amount of response we've had from fans and you know, all the people that have been involved, it's been fantastic. For me, you know, I'm normally a quiet guy and don't get involved in that stuff too much, but it's just been a phenomenal week for myself and the team. But, you know, once you put the helmet on, you got to concentrate again. I'd say yesterday morning was definitely a fun time for myself to get back in the car, and especially somewhere like the Milwaukee Mile where you really got to hustle it. We messed up a little bit in qualifying, ended up third, but I think we got a good car here for the Target boys again, so looking forward to it.
It's not unusual that a driver would win Indy and then come back and win the next race. It's happened before, but certainly is rare. Dixon will try to do it today. Brianne?
Vince, it's 1 week later and people are still talking about the contact between Danica Patrick and Ryan Briscoe at the Indianapolis 500. But Danica, how do you as a driver put all that drama that you've had over the week aside and get into race mode today, especially given that you'll start right behind him today?
Well, you know, it's what we drivers do. Whether you have a good weekend or you have a bad weekend, you fast forward to the next one right away. And once we get here, I mean, all I'm thinking about is what do I need to go out and perform well? What do I need? How does my car need to be? That's all I'm thinking about. And what happened last weekend was last weekend, and this weekend's this weekend.
Jackaroot?
1 week ago at the Indianapolis 500, on the inside comes Marco Andretti, chasing for the lead position along with his teammate Tony Kanaan. The wind takes Tony Kanaan up into the wall. He connects with Sarah Fisher, and the next thing you know, two teammates find themselves maybe at odds. But that was then, and this is now. You guys have talked it all over, and it's time to move on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, you still feel bad to be a part of that, I think, for TK and Sarah Fisher, because, you know, we know how hard she worked to put sponsorship together. So we feel bad to be a part of that. Obviously, you know, we're not going to end an awesome friendship over it. I mean, you know, we talked it over, and the only thing he needs to know is that if I could do it again, I would have done something different, because I don't mean to do that to a teammate, let alone an awesome friend. So, you know, we on to Milwaukee.
And on to Milwaukee, and guess what? He now finds himself starting on the pole for this race.
And there is 19-year-old Graham Rahal. We talked about him starting on the outside of row number 1. He missed the pole by 0.4 of a second. That's over a 4-lap average. And as we close Firestone Race Day, we'll remind you that when we come back, it'll be time for the command to start engines and get this great race underway here at the Milwaukee Mile. And we welcome you live to the Milwaukee Mile. This beautiful 9-degree banked 1-mile oval is the site of many historic races. And we are here for the IndyCar 225. It's race number 6 of the 2008 schedule. Great crowd on hand, and guess who's going to give the command? 4-time Indy 500 champion, A.J. Foyt. Let's go trackside.
Race fans, it is time for those most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome 4-time Indy 500 winner, A.J. Foyt.
Danica and gentlemen, start your engines.
Last time A.J. Foyt gave command, it was boys and girls start your engine. So maybe Danica's gotten on her A.J.'s A list.
He's always entertainment anyways, that's for sure.
All right, along with Scott Goodyear, I'm Marty Reed here in the booth, down trackside, of course. You've already seen Jack Arute, Vince Welch, and Brienne Pettigo. Glad that you're with us. Let's talk about our starting grid, because you'll see some very familiar names at the top. It's Marco Andretti and Graham Rahal. 3 times Michael Andretti and Bobby Rahal lined up on the front row in their IndyCar careers. All 3 times Bobby Rahal ended up winning that race. Is that a... There is Marco Andretti and Rahal. And as we go a little deeper, you'll see there's Michael. Get a chance to see him, and he out-qualified Bobby in 2 of those 3 front row starts, but as we said, Bobby finished ahead of him in all 3 matchups. All right, let's go back as we look through here. You'll see Enrique Bernoldi, a great run for the rookie there in row number 4. But row 6 and 7, we got a little bit of action, because Ryan Briscoe is going to be right there in the inside of row 6, and then the inside of row 7 is Danica Patrick, and the joke was we were looking for a chrome bumper on the front of her car to see if she was going to come out there and take care of business for retaliation for last week.
Well, drivers are always professional, but I have to tell you, you never forget what went on. Remember, it was only a week ago. A lot of emotions still running from Indianapolis, Marty.
Let's take a look at the points as we're now getting back into championship chase mode after, of course, the month of May, where all we worry about really is the 500. And Scott Dixon now leads Elio by 15 markers. Dan Weldon, Tony Kanaan, and Marco Andretti. We've got a total of 6 onboard cameras for you, all of them in high definition, and all of them with our 360-degree capability. You saw the Delphi machine of Vitor Meira. He had a crash in qualifying. We just got you dizzy right there with Tony Kanaan as we went a full 360. And there is Ed Carpenter and the Menards car. Let's get the updates and the final reports from pit road. And up first, it's Jack Arute.
You might want to call the front row here the young guns. 1 week ago, 19-year-old Graham Rahal found himself finishing last in his 2nd open-wheel oval race in the Indy 500. Finds himself on the outside of this row. He, guys, has an opportunity to do something his father never did, and that's win a Milwaukee race here in an IndyCar. Brienne Pettigo?
Jack, pit stops today gonna be a little bit tricky. The pit stalls are much smaller than what drivers are typically used to. In fact, we're down from 47 feet last week in Indy to just 36 feet here today. And Marco Andretti can tell you firsthand what kind of problems that can cause. He damaged his car yesterday after running over one of Danica Patrick's tires. Guys, in case you're keeping track right now, I'm standing in Danica's pit, but just 3 stops that way, you'll find Ryan Briscoe.
And of course, as we get ready to go heading down the backstretch, the pace car has already pulled off. The field has formed up into turns 3 and 4. And the 2 young guns, as Jack called them, on the front row come out of turn number 4. And the race number 6 of the 08 schedule, the IndyCar 225, is green. And look at Dixon. He's going to try and split them. No. Turn 2 has been the problem area throughout practice and qualifying. More on that as the race unfolds. Everybody's made it clean down the backstretch.
Will Power right now in that number 8 machine is showing a lot of strength as he was looking for different ways to get past Scott Dixon. Dixon maybe not with the strongest first lap start, had to start running a bit of a defensive line. Now he seems like he's got his speed up.
And we have damage on Oriol Servia's number 5 as he has pulled his KV Racing Technologies machine into pit lane. There you can see it on the right side of your screen. So obviously some contact and debris out on the track. So already in lap 2, we end up with our first caution. So Marco Andretti, who had jumped out to a very strong lead, is going to lose all of that here in the early going. And well, I sure hope this isn't like Indianapolis. Remember last week in Indy, we had 0 green flag pit stops. Oriol Servia going back out now. They're getting the nose ready. Let's take another look and see what happened.
Looks like a bunch of cars just backed up right there. And Oriol Servia already has damage as the Penske machine just starts to go past him. He does a very quick move right in front of Justin Wilson. Yeah. That was probably something that happened in that back section. It's disappointing because he started in the 9th spot. A lot of those transfer drivers and teams coming over from the Champ Car Series have had a very strong run this weekend and very strong qualifying effort.
Well, you got to remember, Servia has run on this track 7 times. In fact, finished on the podium twice. So, I mean, this facility is not strange to these guys.
Now, he went in there, and you can still see the damages on the car. He went in there. They did not, probably not ready to have the change of wing. He wanted to get back out of pit lane so he could go out in front of the pace car and not go down a lap. So he's now sped around. He'll try to get in, get some service work done on the car, and follow in behind the group here. Remember, the pits are closed, and as long as he can continue on the track, once that yellow comes out, only if you have a flat tire then can you come in.
Wanted to show you Townsend Bell. The reason is because he picked up 11 spots since the start of the race, and that was 2 laps before we went yellow. He started 21st, and he is now 10th. Also moving up, AJ Foyt the 4th. Take a look at Danica as she has gone back. She is in actually 12th position, started 13th. She picked up 1 spot as we are continuing under yellow here. And let's go back and see what happened here from her viewpoint.
A lot of slicing and dicing at the start of these races. The start and restarts are just great times to be able to make a pass.
See, she had actually lost some ground, and there's Enrique Bernoldi, Jack.
They were a little concerned he might have run over debris, seeing Enrique Bernoldi making his first start here at Milwaukee after qualifying very well. Brian Pettigo?
Oriol Servia right now being serviced from that contact early on. They came in on that after that first lap to survey the car. The wing was not ready. They sent him back out, made that repair, and sent him out on the track.
All right, thank you, Brienne. As we are going to step aside, go side by side. You won't miss a thing as we continue under caution here at the Milwaukee Mile. It's Marco Andretti instead of Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, Will Power, and Tony Kanaan. 1 to go this time by. Let's quickly reset it for you. It's Marco Andretti, Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, Will Power, and Tony Kanaan. And if you were on board with Danica before the break, as we get ready to go back to green flag racing, you saw Townsend Bell whip around the high side. That's how he picked up all those spots. Green flag flies were underway again. Now that's Oriol Servia underneath trying to get his lap back, and right now he does. He gets ahead of race leader Marco Andretti. Now how long can he stay there?
Very impressive restart. He timed it perfectly in 3 and 4, but right now Marco Andretti is going to charge down the inside. He certainly knows what Oriol's trying to do, but Oriol holds him off.
And right behind this, you got a battle. We go on board with Scott Dixon, wheel to wheel with the 19-year-old Graham Rahal. That is for position, and Dixon takes over second.
Now remember, Oriol went down a lap because he had that damage to the front wing, went in the pits a few times to repair it, and what ended up happening was he got out and did not beat the pace car, so he was second in the lineup, but 1 lap down. Great job on the restart. What he's hoping for now, guys, is a yellow, so that he can just go back around to the end of the lead lap.
Will Power getting passed by Tony Kanaan, so that is a position change. Move TK up to 4th. And a little further back, Power is under attack from Helio Castroneves. And he looks like he's going to get on the low side and be able to take that spot. So Power backing up a little bit here. And here comes Dan Weldon. Weldon's on the high side. Power's going to look underneath again under Helio. great racing in Milwaukee. It's why we love coming here.
I always love this racetrack because if your car works, you can run high, you can run low. Now remember, all these guys are going to start running into lap traffic here very shortly. Leaders are going to come up to the tail end of the group. A lot of them have said when I polled them, traffic is going to be difficult because our cars do not work well sometimes when falling from the cars in front.
Everybody's sort of fallen into step now as those three positions have calmed down. Just a little bit further back, Townsend Bell is on a move. Remember, he picked up 10 spots thanks to that high side move. And now as we move a little bit further back, he has now moved up to the 8th position ahead of Ryan Hunter-Reay and E.J. Vizo right there. So Townsend Bell, as we go on board with Ryan Hunter-Reay in 9th. Impressive start.
Townsend Bell in the 23 machine that's usually driven by Milka Duno on most weekends. Townsend Bell doing a great job with that car here this weekend, has been competitive. Listen to him on the scanner throughout practice days, working with the crew and really working that car well. The 33 at E.J. Vizo right now starting to look on the inside. One of these transfer drivers over from the Champ Car teams, very strong on this flat 1 mile oval.
Well, all this is going on. Nothing has changed up front. Marco Andretti is still the race leader as he's got a half a second lead over Dixon. And a little bit further back, in fact, 2 seconds back, it's Graham Rahal. And here comes Tony Kanaan. You're on board with TK. The laps fly by here at the Milwaukee Mile at about 23 seconds.
They do fly by, but I'll tell you, car consistency here is so very important. Over the fuel run, if you're going to go out there and run, say, 50 laps, the car, if it only works 20, is not going to do much for you. If you start to back up, you can easily go down a lap here. That's what a lot of the drivers said today when I polled them. They said, you know something? Consistency is important. If you see somebody fall off the pace, that's what's happening to them.
Jack, you've got more?
Well, when you talk about consistency, having some additional practice adds to that. That was the case for all of the rookies here in the IndyCar series. They were allocated 2 extra sets of tires and a rare Friday night practice session. And Graham Rahal was one of the teams that was allowed to do that as Tony Kanaan goes to the inside of Rahal. He accomplishes the pass. Let me finish the story. But one of the things that had some of the other rookies grousing was the fact that Newman Haas Lanigan Racing has such a long history of racing here. In fact, guys, remember, this is a team that's based in Chicago, Illinois. Guess where they used to go to shake their cars down? Right here to the Milwaukee Mile.
Yeah, and some of their names that have won here.
You can try softer on your front bar, too.
That was Rahal's radio. Talking about some of the teams and drivers that have won. Mario Andretti, Paul Tracy, Nigel Mansell, all driving for Newman Haas. We're moving back. There was Briscoe, and here comes Danica Patrick. So Briscoe is right in front of Danica. That could get interesting if she can catch up to him. But all weekend long, yesterday throughout practice and qualifying, she has not had the power. And there goes Briscoe right around her on the high side just a few moments ago. So obviously, Briscoe got the better of it so far. Remember, this is the very track last year where Danica got into it with Dan Weldon. Of course, as we are working lap 24 of 225. So there she is, no stranger to controversy. As we mentioned last year, she got into it with Dan Weldon. And let's take you back to that as we go side by side. There is Danica. Oh, and she's in trouble. Hang on to it.
Weldon hit me. Weldon came down.
Maybe it's a little bit of inexperience on her part.
I'd like to brake check Weldon right now. Just rip his front wing off.
Did she shove you?
She's just being Danica.
He was being stubborn.
She's messing with the wrong person if she wants to get feisty, that's for sure, because I'm a lot tougher than she is on track.
Back in Milwaukee, Marco Andretti continues to lead Scott Dixon by half a second. Let's talk a little horsepower of a different kind as we work lap 31. It's Saturday on ABC as Big Brown looks to make history at the 140th running of the Belmont Stakes. a feat that hasn't been completed since a firm did it in 1978. Can he win the Triple Crown? You'll see it all on ABC Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. On board there with Scott Dixon. Oriol Servia is still out in front of the race leader, trying to stay on the tail end of the lead lap. Then it's Marco Andretti. There you see how the gap is closing between second and third. Dixon and Kanaan, they're within a second of the leaders. There you saw Servia flash through. There's Tony Kanaan in third. Then it's Graham Rahal in fourth. And then Helio Castroneves. And let's get a little more on Helio Castroneves and a drought for Team Penske. Vince Welch.
That's right, Marty. It's been a long time since Helio's been to victory lane. In fact, he's had a 20-race winless drought. He hasn't won since St. Petersburg last year. The 20-race winless drought matches the longest of his career. When he did break that previous drought, he won at St. Louis in 2003, a short track, and we're back on a course, a short track here today at Milwaukee. A year ago, Helio dominated this race. He led 126 laps and seemed certain to be on his way to victory when his rear wing inexplicably collapsed, and that took him out of what he thought was going to be a trip to victory lane. Currently in the top 5, being chased by Dan Weldon.
Yes, he is. In fact, let's take you on a flashback to last year, because as Vince pointed out, he was in control of this race until this moment.
Coming out of turn 4, the back wing just collapsed. The mount for it broke. And luckily for him, it happened as he was coming onto the straightaway. If that had have happened going into the turn at about 185 or 90 miles an hour, it could have been much, much worse.
So that was last year. Right now, Helio, 5th place, 1.8 seconds behind our race leader, Marco Andretti. And there you see Tony Kanaan under attack from Graham Rahal. So again, the action is really good here at Milwaukee. It doesn't take long for somebody. One little bobble, and the guy behind you is right on top of you.
Well, traffic is certainly coming into play, but also that consistency that we spoke about. It looks like Graham's car is starting to get a little stronger as the run goes on, as the fuel burns off and the tires start to wear, and maybe Kanaan is sort of maxed his speed. Now you can hear on the radio from the spotter, continue pushing him. What he's trying to say is, Graham, go after Kanaan. Try and make Kanaan make a small little mistake. That's all it takes here for you to carry the momentum to go on by.
Takes a look down low. Can't get close enough to make the pass work. Behind Graham Rahal is Helio Castroneves and Dan Weldon, you can see from the onboard position. And then right behind Weldon is E.J. Viso. Viso had a good run going at Indianapolis last week until a mechanical took him out late in the race. And Viso will be coming around the corner. There he is right there, the rookie. Let's get more from Jack Arute.
No question about the fact that E.J. Viso is beginning to enjoy oval track racing. But he had a chance encounter in a battle for the lead. Being challenged on the inside was Marco Andretti. And now it looks as if he's settled back, guys.
You want to finish your point on Viso?
Yeah, earlier today I had an encounter with a young female fan. And she gave Viso a commemorative bracelet that he'd stitched to his right foot. It simply said EJ. When I asked him about it, he said, Jack, relax. She was only 8 years old. He says, I want to win for her. It was her baby bracelet. She rearranged it to simply spell EJ.
All right, take a look at the battle for the race lead, and there goes Scott Dixon flying around Marco. Let's get more from Vince Welch.
Well, Scott Dixon really likes that part of the track where he made the pass on Marco Andretti. He told me today before the race he is a very confident driver, and this is a very confident team. And that confidence stems all the way back to last season when his team won 3 straight races as it chased Dario Franchitti for the championship. The confidence carried over to the season opener this year at Homestead, where Dixon won, and it has not stopped. And of course, capped by the win at Indianapolis last week. He has never led a lap here at the Milwaukee Mile until right now.
And he just put Enrique Bernoldi, the rookie, down a lap. So Bernoldi in 23rd position, so 22. And all of a sudden we're getting a report that Tony Kanaan has slowed. Kanaan back to 6th position now as he has dropped a couple of spots. See a little piece of debris on the left wing plate. Don't think that has anything to do with it, but look at his last lap at 139 versus the leader's last lap at over 146. So we'll keep our eyes and ears pegged on TK to see if there's a problem there. Remember, he has won this race the last 2 years, looking to make it 3 in a row. The only guy who has ever done it here in Milwaukee was Tom Sneva back in 82, 83, and 84.
Now let's watch the Firestone telemetry. Really off the throttle through the turn and staying off the throttle for an extended period of time. Not the fast way to get around here. As he's running behind traffic, you certainly are going to get on the brakes maybe just a little bit, but usually you're back on the gas. If you have confidence with the race car, you'll just nail that throttle. He is getting on the throttle, but much later than he would like to.
And that little piece of debris, that's all it is. It's a little, it looks like more like a candy wrapper or anything on that left front wing plate. Nothing serious there. There you can see it, a good close-up shot of it as he's looking to get around Mario Dominguez. And that Dominguez already a lap down. So meanwhile, it is Scott Dixon over Marco Andretti by 1.3 seconds. So the man who won at Homestead and at Indianapolis is in the lead again. Is he going to win again? Stay with us to find out here at the Milwaukee Mile. Scott Dixon with a win at the Indianapolis 500. And he's picked up right where he left off. He's putting Vitor Meira, the man who finished second last week, a lap down. Meira started last. He had a qualifying crash, and he started at the rear of the field, had moved his way up to 19th, but then all the lap traffic and the fact that they had to do a lot of work on that car, he is now a lap down. Another guy that is dropping like a stone is Marco Andretti. He is now back to 6th position, and there is down the backstretch the number 9 of Scott Dixon, and a total of 6.5 seconds back is Marco Andretti, and there he is. And there's a battle behind him with E.J. Viso and Ryan Briscoe going on. So while we watch this, let's get an update from Brianne Pettigo.
Marty, the problem with Marco Andretti is he has zero grip on the racetrack. In fact, he just had a moment just a few laps ago where he got extremely loose. Expect him to take a half a turn of front wing on their next stop. It'll be in about 10 laps. Vince?
Well, and right behind Marco Andretti was a battle between E.J. Viso and Ryan Briscoe. You see Briscoe has let Viso go, but he pressured him for 2 solid laps. Briscoe has 3 DNFs in 5 races. He desperately needs to finish, so while he'd like to get by E.J. Viso, he's not going to put his car at risk to do so.
And while you were finishing up, Viso got around Marco Andretti, and here comes Briscoe underneath Marco. So Marco needs a caution badly.
Well, we talked about car consistency. I have had it here before where you go 20, 25 laps with a great car. You think, I'm going to have a great day. And in the end result, the car starts to go off a little bit. You think, I can live with it. And then 10 laps later, it gets almost undrivable, and you're just waiting for the first yellow to make some changes during the next pit stop. All these drivers out here now, Marty, will communicate with their team, tell them what's going on with the car. They'll make some wing adjustments, tire pressure adjustments to improve the car to track conditions.
Well, right now, as we are checking out, he's 7.5 seconds in 8th place behind the race leader of Scott Dixon. Everybody's lap times have fallen off. The fast race laps were at 22.7. Right now, Scott Dixon is at 24.4. So the tires are going away as the fuel load continues to go off. One of the guys we wanted to update, obviously the man who finished second at the Indianapolis 500, Vitor Meira. He is the first car a lap down in 20th position. Now, here's what happened to him yesterday in qualifying. Remember, it's 4-lap average, just like they do at the Speedway. And here's what happened to Vitor yesterday in turn number 2, which has been everybody's bugaboo.
Car just starts to go out from underneath him on the back. It's oversteer. It gets loose, hits the outside retaining wall, and then pushes the car in towards the inside wall. Had some damage on the car. They changed the engine, the bell housing, the transmission from their spare car, and he's back into his car here today without any practice laps. I'm sure they're going to be struggling just a little bit with that car here today. Jack Arute?
Scott, that's the same car that he finished the Indy 500 with in second place. David Cripps and Vitor Meira told me this morning that he just plain stepped out. They worked until 12 midnight, and they made a change on the car, opting not for speed, but for durability today. So in essence, they knew that they had given up their hopes of challenging for a win today.
All right, and as you finish up, Jack, we move back up towards a battle between Tony Kanaan in the 7-11. He's 5th place, and right behind him is Ryan Briscoe in 6th. A little further back is E.J. Viso. The battle has cooled momentarily. You heard Vince emphasize, and we've got a yellow on the track here. And there is debris on the track. And boy, Briscoe had to pull down sharply because he almost ran up behind of Tony Kanaan. So our second caution comes out on lap 63, and we were just about to the pit window.
Very timely. You can expect everybody in during this caution period for fuel and tires and adjustments.
You're looking at race leader Scott Dixon. He's now led in every race this year except St. Petersburg, and he's led for over 450 laps in 5 races. Can you say domination? Gets a tear off, gives it a pitch right back towards Graham Rahal. Graham will say thank you very much. Pits are still closed at this point, so everybody will form up behind the pace car. Those that really made the move, I mean, Townsend Bell moved forward for a while, fell back now to 13th. Remember, he had gotten as high as 8th after the first caution. Others that have been moving up, Justin Wilson, who started way back in 22nd, will tell you he's picked up 6 spots. Still no threat to move into the lead, but it's good to give the guys that have been working their way up from the back of the pack. There's Justin in the McDonald's 02. And there is your race leader with Graham Rahal in 2nd, Elio Castroneves 3rd, Dan Weldon 4th, and Tony Kanaan in 5th. You can see a lot of lap cars in between our top 5. Ryan Briscoe is in 6th, E.J. Vizo 7th, Will Power 8th, Hideki Muto 9th, and Marco Andretti had dropped all the way back to 10th position. And boy, did he need this pit stop. Jack Arute, you're up first.
Well, Graham Rahal will hit the pits first. They had debated whether to make a wing change. Instead, they're going to make a pressure change on the right rear. And guess who called it off? Graham Rahal said, I don't want a wing change. Meanwhile, up front, Scott Dixon's in his pit. Vince?
Elio Castroneves and Scott Dixon in the pits. Castroneves, no changes. Dixon wants a little front wing adjustment, and he is off. First one off pit lane.
Good stop for Elio. Dixon in that first pit stop. They took a little bit longer, and the race off pit road. So far, everybody seems to have gotten off clean. So Dixon, Castroneves picked up a spot. Rahal loses a spot. Buddy Rice, we can't tell you, missed his pit. So that's going to cost that team. Stay with us. Well, as we continue under caution, Monday, 12 players will start on a mission, but one will try to sabotage them all. It's the summer's biggest mystery. You can play right along. Who is the mole? Season premiere is tomorrow night on ABC. All right, we are under a caution here, and the sweepers are out because you noticed it. In fact, we heard some of the drivers complaining about it on the radio. The marbles have really gotten bad.
Just the small pieces of rubber that are the usual tire wear off of the tires. And see all those little black pieces, just small pieces of rubber. And this is actually starting to get down, encroaching on the racing line. And I even noticed it actually on the pit line itself, going into the pits and the pit exit. So it'll be interesting to see if the sweepers are sent to go around there to remove some of those rubber marbles, because if you get on those, the car just gets that up in the tire, as I call it. The marbles are on the tire of the car. You can feel rays off the ground, and you just become a passenger, and into the outside barrier you go.
As we continue under caution, a couple of things I want to update you on. We were looking back towards the back of the pit lane, and I made a missed call. It was Dan Weldon that was still in pit lane. He did come out in 4th. Dixon did get out ahead of Elio Castroneves with Graham Rahal 3rd. Weldon 4th, and Tony Kanaan 5th. Danica Patrick and teammate Hideki Muto. Muto missed his box by about 3 feet. It caused a chain reaction. Muto is 9th, and Patrick is all the way back to 18th because they could not get her into the box cleanly. So we've seen our first incident where the narrow pit box has caused a problem. And also Vitor Mira, take a look at what happened to Vitor as he was coming in. One of the crew members from E.J. Vizo's camp had a very close call. Here's the video as he comes in. That's how close it is.
36 feet a pit stall is here versus the 47 that we had at Indianapolis. So much tighter here, although it's a wide pit lane. very small pit stalls.
Jack, half a lap to green. What do you have?
Well, it got Vitor Meira's attention. He, in fact, as he pulled in and they were making the exchange, he was already on the radio saying, you've got to tell those guys to give me more room. Let's see what room they give him at the green flag.
Coming out of turn 4. Here we go. And look at this. We got 3 going to try for turn 1. It sorts itself out. Dixon stays in front of Castroneves with Graham Rahal third. Down the backstretch, and it is a huge traffic jam all the way back through the middle section of this field. That's Will Power in the number 8 trying to make a march towards the front. Power's got Ryan Hunter-Reay on the outside, the lap vehicle of Vitor Meira, and Ryan Hunter-Reay goes around Will Power, Jack.
And guys, Ryan Hunter-Reay told Scott Remke that this is an evil car right now. He said, I'm just holding on. Remke very calmly said, I understand. We'll try and chase it down. Just try to hold on to the lead draft. It's early in the race. But Ryan Hunter-Reay is working that ethanol car for all she's got.
Well, remember, Ryan Hunter-Reay was Rookie of the Year at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, finishing in 6th position. Had a great run just 1 week ago at the Speedway, as we show you what happened, as he was slicing and dicing whenever he had the opportunity, and this was his best move all the way down to the wall, getting around Mario Moraes and Danica Patrick. And of course, this is one of those drivers that, yes, he's had some experience. As boy, look at Will Power getting a little racy with him as well, as they're side by side through the corner, coming out of 2. Ryan Hunter-Reay gets back ahead of Power. But Ryan has actually won here in a Champ Car race when Champ Car was running in Milwaukee. In fact, he led every lap. In fact, lapped the entire field except for 2nd and 3rd place, leading all 250 laps in 04.
Boy, that's when the driver just feels so in tune with the race car. Great to experience that. That means the car is working perfectly. Driver and car all feel like one.
Brianne, you got an update on Will Power?
Marty, he is just about as happy as he's been since the whole unification started. He said that this track is just amazing for him. He's been confident and consistent all week long, and that's exactly what they believe it will take to win here in Milwaukee.
Well, he's coming off a 13th place run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was a good day for Will. And right now he wants to make today just a little bit better if he can get around and figure out how to get past Ryan Hunter-Reay for 7th. And here he goes.
Gets the momentum through the bottom portion of the turn 3 and 4. Will he get it done between turn 1 and 2?
Number 2 has been where all of our big incidents have occurred throughout the 2-day race weekend. Seems strange saying 2-day race weekend after spending a whole month of May at Indianapolis.
It certainly does, not only for us, but also for these drivers. But what Will Power will be looking for is that when they get up to traffic, will he be able to take advantage of getting through some of that traffic and maybe time it right to be able to get past the cars that are in front. When you don't have the speed, sometimes you have to do it by outsmarting the drivers up in front.
So far, while we're watching all this, we'll let you know nothing's changed up front. Dixon is leading Helio Castroneves by 2.9 seconds. Graham Rahal is 3rd, Weldon is 4th, and Tony Kanaan is 5th. Let's check in on the battle for 2nd between Castroneves and Graham Rahal. There they are. They come down the front straightaway. Let's get an update from Jack Arute.
Marty, all week long, Graham Rahal has had little or no complaints with his hole-in-the-wall gang special. In fact, during the race, as I alluded to, Graham Rahal's crew chief, Tom Malloy, wanted to make a slight wing adjustment, and this 19-year-old waved off that decision. He likes the way the car is handling, and what his spotter is doing now is playing a little bit of cat and mouse. They let him go up and attack, then they have him drop off a little bit. Right now they keep telling Graham it's still a lot of laps to go. Let's get the update on Helio Castroneves from Vince Welch.
Well, Jack, it's a similar message from Tim Cindric, who handles the strategy for Helio. A lot of laps remaining. Keep an eye on your fuel. Helio wanting to chase Scott Dixon, who's now built a big lead, but Tim Cindric telling him, don't worry about Dixon, worry about fuel. Marty?
So we're already talking fuel economy?
Well, they do have driver adjustment aids inside the car. You can cut back on the fuel. We've talked about this numerous times. 100% fuel makes lots of horsepower. We've got Scott Dixon right now just starting to click off some of these laps. But if you turn it back in the cockpit, you end up with -1, -2, -3 on fuel. Yes, you save fuel, run a little bit less horsepower, maybe a little slower speed. Is Dixon concerned about that? We've seen him run out of fuel before. Obviously, Chicago last year running towards the championship. Maybe they're a different strategy here today, Marty. Maybe they're just going to go for it and run 100% fuel and see how that works out for them.
You saw our Firestone lap leaders where Scott Dixon has led more laps than Marco Andretti. As you see our top 5 here at the Milwaukee Mile. Stay with us. We'll be back after this word and a message from our ABC stations. Back here at the Milwaukee Mile, Marty Reed along with Scott Goodyear, Jack Root, Vince Welch, Brian Pettigo. You're riding on board with Vitor Meira, who unfortunately for Vitor and his fans is a lap down. That's Ryan Hunter-Reay right behind him. Ryan running a good solid 8th position. Now we look out the front of Ryan's car. And meanwhile, we can tell you that a little further up in the field, well, nothing's changed. Scott Dixon is running away by 2.3 seconds. And there's his teammate, Dan Weldon, who is 5 seconds back in 4th position. But if you remember that story of that helmet, we basically touched on it back at Indianapolis. And Vince Welch, I know you've got more.
Well, Marty, the helmet that Dan Weldon is wearing today was designed by 9-year-old Sophie Banker, a pediatric cancer patient at Peyton Manning's Children's Hospital in Indianapolis. After a visit to the hospital in April, Weldon chose Sophie's design, which matches her favorite blanket that she used to keep as security and her strength during her surgeries, and certainly her long trips of chemotherapy represent strength and determination. Sophie's been here at the track this weekend. Dan spent some time with her, says he can't imagine the trials and challenges this child has been through. He says Sophie deserves to feel special today, and how special it would be if Weldon would somehow manage to make it to victory lane wearing Sophie's design on his helmet.
I hope she does feel special because she's obviously a shy young lady, but a great design. And take a look as Dan Weldon, and look now as we got a regular traffic jam going into turn 3. The 20 car of Ed Carpenter, the 02 underneath him, that's Justin Wilson. That's a battle for 10th. And boy, I'll tell you what, Justin Wilson has been working his way up through the field.
And you know what's neat about this is your race car sometimes will work in high and low situations like Dixon seems to do right now. But there's a group of drivers out now that like the high line, there's some that like the low line, and that's what they're fighting for. They're fighting for real estate right now. You're trying to get on the low side. You're trying to get back on the gas and dispatch the car that's on the outside of you. And if you can do that without the back end spinning around, that's what's important. It's just a teeter-totter game on the throttle pedal. Make sure the car doesn't slide out from underneath you.
Well, Justin Wilson has picked up 11 positions, Jackaroot.
And he may want to thank his teammate Graham Rahal for that. After qualifying, Justin Wilson did not like the way his McDonald's car was performing. So he huddled with his crew, and they decided to put Graham Rahal's setup on the McDonald's car. And it seems to be working. Vince Welch.
Well, and Jack, as you see these drivers fight through traffic with 26 cars in the field today, it's certainly going to be something you're going to deal with all day long. But Brian Barnhart in the drivers' meeting today talked about comers and goers all day long. As we now are 40 laps in since that last fuel stop, you're going to have cars who are drivers whose cars are going away throughout the course of a run, and some whose cars may be getting a little better. So while some drivers are going to the front, others are fading. The comers and goers that these guys will be dealing with all day long.
Well, the goers right now are Marco Andretti and Danica Patrick. They're 14th and 15th respectively, and they are about to be lapped by the race leader. And there is Oriol Servia. As Servia is on the lead lap in 11th position. He managed to stay up there and did a great job, Brienne.
Marty, this is an impressive run for KB Racing. Oriol Servia has picked up 15 positions on the track since that incident early in the race. He is on a tear, so happy with this car, in fact, that they're already talking strategy. They've begun to conserve fuel on this stint, seeing if that plays to get them into victory lane.
Okay, so meanwhile, while all this is going on, Scott Dixon is getting oh so close to Danica Patrick, as she is the next victim on the hit list. There are 15 cars on the lead lap, and there's Danica on the left side. In fact, there is the Mario Dominguez car. He's already more than one lap down. And there is Danica as she's in jeopardy of going a full lap down here, as We're just passing the top of the hour. If you're joining us here at the Milwaukee Mile, welcome aboard. I'm Marty Reed along with Scott Goodyear, Jagger Root, Vince Welch, and Brienne Pettigo. And no, Danica Patrick's not leading the race if you just tuned in. We're telling everybody that she's just about to go a lap down Scott Goodyear to race leader and Indy 500 champion Scott Dixon.
Well, Danica in the black and blue Motorola car and Scott Dixon's car behind the red and white machine of the Target car. What he's trying to do, obviously, put her a lap down. She knows the leader's behind her. She sees it in her mirror. She hears it on the radio from the spotters. The spotters are up on top of the stands. They see the whole circuit and they relay information to the driver. She looks like she's now picked up the pace just a little bit because she was about 3 miles an hour off the pace previous to this, and now she's starting to run just a little bit faster. She's gained about 1.5 miles, almost 2 miles an hour. She does not want to go a lap down. You're going to push as hard as you possibly can to prevent that. And next on the hit list is our pole sitter, Marco Andretti. He is in 14th position, just 1 more second ahead of Danica. So 2 Andretti Green Racing Team members in jeopardy of going a lap down. Although right now, as you pointed out, Danica able to hold position in 15th. With Scott Dixon closing ever so slightly. We'll go side by side. We'll see you if it happens. Back here at the Milwaukee Mile, we're approaching the halfway mark. Remember last week at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the halfway mark was led by Tony Kanaan, and we said, oh, only 3 times in 20 years has the guy leading at halfway went on to win, and shortly thereafter, TK was out of the race. Here it's just the opposite. 16 times since 1980 the halfway leader has gone on. Let's go back to last week and talk about what happened with Tony Kanaan.
Marco Andretti is now a driver on the move. Tony Kanaan out in front. Oh, and we've got a big problem.
Tony Kanaan lost it, got a pie in the marbles, kind of glanced off the wall, then collected Sarah Fisher.
Here comes Marco. Marco makes a move very late going into 3 and leaves no room for Tony. He's gone. So much for teamwork.
Tell him I'm sorry.
You better be. I think it was a very stupid move, especially on the teammates.
Should Marco been there? I don't know. It's a tough call. The way I saw it, I had an awesome run, and I just got to the inside. I felt so bad at the time, but I got to focus on the task at hand, and that was to try to win the race.
That was 1 week ago. Right now, Tony Kanaan is trying so desperately to win 3 years in a row here. And we talked to Tony, of course, this week about moving forward after last week's incident.
Reality is we lost the 500. Not just me, not just Marco. As a team, we have races to win, we have a championship to win, so let's stop creating problems when we can't solve them. It doesn't really matter right now if it was my fault, his fault. As long as we learn that we got to move forward from this, and to be able to win races to represent our team well, we can't be against each other. So there is no choice, really. It's either we get along or we get along.
And Tony, always the class act. We put the question right up to him because the rumors have already started. He's in the last year of his contract. He cannot officially talk to any other team until August. He said he's not particularly looking to leave. He knows about the rumors about moving potentially to Roger Penske's operation, but he says that is something that he hasn't even addressed. He's going to talk to Michael about a contract extension in the not too distant future there, and he'll see what happens from that point on. All right, so now as you saw all that action going on, Briscoe did get around Tony for 5th position. There is Oriol Servia. He is still running in 10th. We can tell you there are 16 cars on the lead lap. There is Justin Wilson right in front of Oriol Servia. And boy, Wilson in 9th has a great run going. You know, this is the first race where we've been able to not have to make an explanation or an excuse for our transition drivers that came over from Champ Car, because some of these guys have run here, and you're seeing some of the talent coming through. These teams, after a month at Indy, are really starting to shine.
Well, they have experience here. They understand cars that are almost on this flat oval, as we call it. Look how close this is right now. Tony Kanaan trying to just get on the low side. The car pushes up. He had to get out of the gas. He'll lose a little bit of momentum, runs a blocking line now, just a little bit going into 3 to make sure Will Power doesn't take advantage of that. That was so close.
Almost rubbed the Firestone logo off of the tires. Take a look at all this traffic. Remember, we had 18 cars here last year, 26. Now, there was originally 27. Marty Roth crashed in practice yesterday, decided to withdraw the entry, and so he'll move on to next week.
You You know, back to the transition drivers, as you called them, Marty, as we now look at Scott Dixon just continuing to run strong laps. This track is very familiar to them. A lot of them have run this type of track before. It's a flat racetrack, almost a little bit like a road course in that sense.
Take a look at the rookies with previous experience here, and you can see quite a few of them have been on this track. Jamie Kamara won in the Indy Lights in 2006. So this is not a foreign track to a lot of these guys, and they're showing, and their teams are showing. After all that work that they have done, it's been spectacular efforts at Indianapolis. Some of those teams just learning what they needed to get to be successful. Now, as we get ready to go to break, Scott Dixon, we're being told, had a little bit of a wiggle. He's still in control of this race, though, by 2.4 seconds over Helio Castroneves and Graham Rahal, the rookie. Take a look. A lot of dirty air up there. Hello. Whoa. Saturday on ABC, Big Brown looks to make history at the 140th Belmont Stakes. Can he win the Triple Crown? A feat that hasn't been completed since affirmed. As we got a crash. No, Graham Rahal into the wall, reminiscent of last week at Indianapolis as he pancakes the right side. Bobby Rahal from his position. Unfortunately for Graham at the Indy, of course, it happened earlier in the race. He ended up 33rd. Here it happens past the halfway mark at lap 130 in our third caution, and I don't know exactly what caused this. He was running very strong in the third position.
And coming up to a lot of traffic at that point in time. We talked about the spotters, and that's all the spotters up there, and Bobby Rahal is up in that spotter's position also watching. The 06, the McDonald's car of Graham Rahal right now on the high side, Marty. That's not going to work, especially when Darren Manning has nowhere to go to try to get around Buddy Rice in the 15 machine. And the odd man out on that is Rahal.
Yeah, and Manning and Rice were both lap vehicles, and he was trying to get around him. And reaction of the team as they realized their rookie made an error, got up in the marbles, and that's another one. We talked about it in Indy. He'll notch this one in his memory banks. You got to remember, he's 19 years old, but you know, he's going to make those mistakes.
And patience around here, especially when you have a track that's putting out a lot of marbles on the high line. Very difficult. 2 lines you can get away with. A third one is not going to work.
So you saw him climb out of the car. He'll take the trip to get checked out to make sure everything's okay. Let's get an update from pit lane. Jackaroo.
Marty, you were talking about the fact that this is not a new track for unification drivers, but it is indeed for this man, Graham Rahal. Remember, he did not run at this race when the last time the Champ car was here. He had never even run a support series race here. So that type of mistake that you saw, well, sometimes you have to expect it first time out.
A tough break, as you can see. We're under our third caution as the pit lane is going to be open, and again we're going to be seeing pit stops under yellow.
And right about the perfect time, 65 laps since the last pit time, so perfect as far as the time is concerned for fuel.
We have a total of 14 cars on the lead lap, and Scott Dixon will lead them down, and I hear from our producer it's going to be all Vince all the time. So Vince, they're coming your way.
Well, guys, it's been a very successful run for Helio Castroneves and particularly Ryan Briscoe, who was a very disappointing 19th in points. Briscoe comes to this pit stop in 3rd place. You see him at the bottom of your screen. No changes for Team Penske, either car. There'll be a half a turn of front wing for Scott Dixon. They're encouraging him to save his tires on this next end.
Again, several cars get up. Whoa, it gets awfully narrow there. You saw Tony Kanaan trying to squeeze on through. And you can see off of pit road, Ed Carpenter picked up 3 positions. We'll check in with his camp. He moves up to a couple of spots courtesy of a fast pit stop. So as we'll step aside, this will be one of our station breaks. We'll return after this message from our ABC stations as again they try and get rid of the marbles here in Milwaukee. Great crowd here at Milwaukee, at the Milwaukee Mile, as we're under our 3rd caution of this event. Let's talk about tonight on ABC, because all your Sunday favorites are here in one place, starting at 7, 6 Central, with America's Funniest Home Videos, followed by Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Then it's Always Summer with the Desperate Housewives, followed by Brothers and Sisters. All your Sunday favorites tonight, starting at 7, 6 Central, only on ABC. So we are still cleaning up. As you can see, the sweeper's trying to get all the marbles up. Jack, what's going on? You got something on the mirrors?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that the Indy Racing League constantly tries to do is to get some cost containment. You see the mirrors on Vitor Mirrors National Guard car? Well, you know, there's been a choice of mirrors that teams can use, super speedway, short track, depending on what they want to do with car balance and grip. Well, these mirrors that you see on Vitor Mirrors' car and the mirrors that you see on every car in the starting field will be the mirrors that they will have to use for the rest of the season. Short tracks, road courses, or super speedways. So what some teams have done is they've elected to try and get as much advantage as they can on the big tracks. Others have tried to do it on the short tracks. And for some, like Jamie Camara there in the 34, it happens to be whatever they happen to have when they took delivery of the car. Graham Rahal is on his way out, fellas. We'll try to get a word with him.
All right, thank you, Jack. Let's Will Power as he makes a late stop, as does Bruno Junqueira. And Jack lived up to his word. He has caught up to Graham Rahal.
Graham, let's talk a little bit about what happened down there in the corner.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's pretty upsetting. I mean, the whole guys, the hole in the wall Camp's car was running really well today, and it just makes me mad, you know, because Manning was all over the track and going the outside of him, and I don't quite think the officials are doing their part in helping us, you know, get through traffic, and as you can see, just getting the marbles, and it's gone. I mean,
once you get up in that gray stuff, what as a driver can you do?
I don't think you can do anything. I mean, I had the wheel turned fully off the throttle on the brakes, and it goes straight. I mean, you know, it's just frustrating. It's 2 weeks in a row.
Guys, you're going back to green. Graham Rahal will not be at this green.
No, that's for sure. It's Scott Dixon, Elio Castroneves, Ryan Briscoe, Dan Weldon, Tony Kanaan. That is your top 5 as we're back to green with 85 laps to go. Boy, Dixon has a good car. This team is in a groove right now. Take a look a little bit further back. That's E.J. Viso in the 33, looking on the high side of the 20 as we go on board. Where'd Viso go? He went to the low side. He went high-low on him, and he's got the position if he can hold on to it. Oh, this could get dicey.
All the way through to 6 now. What a strong start for him. Just a lot of different various background in the cars. You see the number 4 machine, Vitor Mirror. He is a lap down. And Ed Carpenter's going to try and get around him at this time.
Jack, I'll tell you one thing. The one thing we've learned about E.J. Viso, he's not afraid.
He is more fearless than Dick Tracy. But, guys, did you see that move down on that new pavement? Well, E.J. Viso and his crew worked running their car down on that new pavement in the second practice yesterday. They're going through a racing oval tutorial for this kid, and he is starting to ace it. In fact, during the pit stops, they're still trying to teach him how to turn in and be courteous with people that are in front and behind him. No courtesy there, just making the car stick.
He is up to 6th position right now. His next target is 2 seconds ahead. That's Tony Kanaan, so he's got a little bit of gap to make up. Meanwhile, we drop back a little bit further. Oriol Servia in 8th position. Brienne?
This might be the story of the day, Marty. Oriol Servia has made up every single position he lost, +1. His team in the pits has gained 4 positions for him on the track. When they came in last time, Oriol wanted a minor adjustment of it on his right front wing, but his owner, Jimmy Vasser, said, you know what, Oriol, right now, let's just focus on track position. That's more important, so that it was just tires and fuel for him.
Meanwhile, as all that continues, the battle up front isn't much, well, it's getting better. I mean, Castroneves is 0.3 of a second. Look at Servia go underneath Ed Carpenter. That is for position. 7th place, to be exact.
Perfectly timed. They talked about his owner, Jimmy Vasser, one of the owners of KV Racing. Jimmy Vasser won this race here in 1998. Just a wealth of experience. Remember, he showed up at Long Beach for the final Champ Car race. Quite a competitor.
And he did a nice job, I might tell you. And he's thinking about running Indianapolis next year. There you see Danica Patrick. She is running in 10th position. Her teammate Marco Andretti, our pole sitter, is up to 8th. So they have worked their way back up. There's Marco. He's got his hands full right now. Jamie Camara just slows him up as the lap vehicle. Ed Carpenter gets underneath, and here comes Danica as he has to break momentum.
All done because of traffic, and that's what all the drivers said between yesterday and today. It's all going to come down to traffic, the timing of the traffic, being able to get past people. And that's one thing I want to go back and visit with Graham Rahal. He's in control of the race car. He can see what's going on up there. He knows those two guys are battling. Even though they may be a lap down, there's a lot going on. And if you're an experienced driver, maybe you would sit back and play it differently and look for a different opportunity instead of putting yourself in harm's way. And that's what he did when he tried to get on the high side with two cars that are battling up in front.
Looking out the front now of Danica's car, that is Ed Carpenter right in front, and that's for 8th position. Ed is in 8th, she's in 9th. Closes the gap. And takes a look, but not close enough, and then has to ease off the throttle going into 1. Down the back straightaway, here comes Marco also. Now that's Jamie Kamara in the 34. He is several laps down. But Carpenter not able to dispatch it.
No, but he got lost the front wing going behind him when he crossed his bow. Now what ends up happening is Danica Patrick has the opportunity to move a little closer. Now Danica certainly picked up the pace once she saw that Scott Dixon was in her mirrors, and she's now running a speed up in the neighborhood of 155 to 156 miles an hour, very close to leader pace. So I think she saw that she was about ready to go a lap down quite a few laps ago when we talked about it, and she put her foot down on it.
And there you see Marco Andretti also getting around Jamie Kamara. And we've had some viewers ask us, I thought his name was pronounced Jaime. And we asked him, and he said, no, he wanted to Americanize it, so he has asked us to call him Jamie Kamara. So that's what we're doing. We haven't all lost our marbles. Well, not all of us. All right, we're going to go side by side. This race is far from over. Forget next Saturday on ESPN2, NASCAR Countdown begins at 7 p.m. Eastern. It'll be followed by the NASCAR Nationwide Series at Nashville, presented by Craftsman. Then more IndyCar racing action comes your way. The Bombardier Learjet IndyCar 550, that's at Texas. It's all Saturday on ESPN2. And as we come back here to the Milwaukee Mile, we can tell you that Ryan Briscoe has gotten around Elio Castroneves. That is for 2nd place now. So Briscoe desperately needs to have a good run. Is under attack. There's Elio under attack from Dan Weldon. So Briscoe gets around his teammate. He is 2.5 seconds behind our leader, Scott Dixon. Right now, Castroneves has his hands full with Dan Weldon, and Castroneves' car may be falling off a little bit here as we have about 29 laps into this run on tires and fuel. And Weldon is giving him all he can. Takes another look inside. Can't get it done down on that low line, Scott.
Castroneves prefers a high line 3 and 4, although he's starting to run a little bit lower line going into 1 and 2 where he's headed right now. Seems to run a little bit tighter line on the entrance just to make sure he takes any advantage away or any opportunity for Weldon to have a shot in 1, but it slows him coming out of 2, and that's where Weldon seems to get just a bit of a run like he did the previous lap. This is all down to timing. Dan's a smart enough driver. He'll sit back and look. He sees that traffic is coming, and he'll pick and choose to make sure he doesn't put himself at risk.
I think he's pretty much resigned to the point that it's not going to happen until Elio makes a mistake. That's Mario Moraes going around. That's the 19 car. He is several laps down. This was the pass as Ryan Briscoe goes around his teammate a few laps ago down the backstretch heading into 3. Elio makes it easy. And let's get an update on Ryan Briscoe, who so desperately needs to finish this race, Jackaroo.
Well, that's an understatement, but a good indicator of just how good the car is running. The Team Penske operation has made 0 changes on that car since the start of the race, fellas.
Remember, he has had 3 crashes in races, a 4th at the Speedway in a practice session. And you know, it's not good when you're in Team Penske equipment to be racking it up against the wall. That's why everybody's been focusing so much. on this run today to see if he can rebound, especially after all the focus that last week's got with Danica.
His car is working very well for him right now. You watch the car go from the concrete over onto the pavement itself, and although transition, the car does not seem to bobble. He seems to be able to drive it without any fanfare whatsoever. It shows you, it tells me that the car is working very well for Ryan.
Well, and you see the gap that he's opened up over his teammate Elio Castroneves in just a number of laps after making the pass. So Briscoe, as you said, has a good car right now, and Elio has his hands full. Meanwhile, let's talk about the first season with Team Penske, because some similarities here. As you can see, Elio Castroneves in his first 5 races, nothing really to write home about except for the second event. And Ryan, of course, a 9th and a 7th. So comparable, but everybody's been speculating if Ryan keeps crashing, will Team Penske fire him? That's not Roger's style to fire somebody in the middle of the season.
Now, and as we were looking at that graphic, Dan Weldon did a nice move to take over the position past Castroneves. And now Castroneves has the 711 machine, and Tony Kanaan starting to look. And it seems like every time he comes out of turn 2, as I mentioned before, just doesn't get through there as well as his teammate car. You know, the one thing they've changed since last year here, we have the paddle shifters on these cars, and all these drivers said they'd love it, especially at this tight 1 mile oval. Do not take your hands off the steering wheel, just reach your fingers forward and upshift, and then reach your fingers forward on your left hand to downshift. Pretty neat for these drivers. No taking their hand off the steering wheel, reaching for the gear shifter like we did in the past, Marty.
Let's check back in with our race leader, Scott Dixon, as he is now the 4th race this year in which he has led more than 100 laps. He's led over 48% of all laps this year. And here we are in race number 6 of 2008. Right now his lead over Ryan Briscoe is 1.4 seconds. And we talked about it, the car is on a rail, but here comes Briscoe as he is trying to whittle into that lead.
Briscoe's been turning laps faster than Scott Dixon for about the last 4 or 5. Dixon's about 156, and Ryan Briscoe's turning 158.3. So definitely the car is working well for him on the long run.
Vince, you've got more?
Well, and also while others are fighting for position back in the field, Scott Dixon has been in a bit of a fuel conservation mode. Mike Hall telling him to make sure and get as many laps as he can out of this tank of fuel. They know they're going to have to stop for a splash, but if you can conserve fuel during this stint, it's going to take a less amount of time to get that splash of fuel, because you're going to need less fuel to get to the finish. So that's what Dixon is thinking now. Maybe going to turn it up a bit as Ryan Briscoe starts to pressure. But Dixon trying to follow up his win at Indianapolis with a victory here today at Milwaukee. Still feeling a bit relieved, if nothing else, that he finally got that win at Indy.
Scott, I was going to ask you about fuel conservation.
It was amazing. You know, I think it's all that you think it's going to be and more. And you know, it's just all the, you know, the ceremonial things. You know, all those famous pictures you see of, you know, the person drinking the milk and you're actually doing it. It felt surreal and like a movie. And you know, even till the next day, I still, you know, you had to wake up, check the paper, and make sure we'd actually done it. It was kind of, it was strange. You know, everything was going on so much, and then you're in the media. Like, I didn't leave the track till 12:30 that night. You know, after we were done. So it was fun but crazy.
And take a look at the battle for the race lead down the front straightaway. Briscoe underneath, and he does go ahead of Scott Dixon. So with 49 laps to go, we have a new race leader, and it's Ryan Briscoe.
Wilson, next car, clear by 4. Use your head to traffic.
Tell you what, in a matter of 10 laps, he went from a 2.2 second deficit, Jack Arute, to taking the race lead.
Although they made no adjustments, Ryan Briscoe knew when he sat in this car that it would be good in traffic. You saw how good it was in traffic, as you alluded to, Marty. And how about this from Roger Penske, the captain? As he took over the lead, he said, "You've got a really good car there, Ryan. Make sure you take care of it."
There you see Roger Penske on the right side of your screen, and that is Justin Wilson. Wilson has just been put a lap down. Just prior, he's right at the tail end of the lead lap right now and trying to keep from going a lap down, as he is the 13th and final car on the lead lap. So while all this goes on, what is Ryan Briscoe thinking about? Remember, a week ago, he's embroiled in a controversy because of a pit lane crash. Now he's in the lead at Milwaukee. Back here at the Milwaukee Mile, that is Ryan Briscoe shooting around Danica Patrick, putting Danica a lap down. She is in 11th spot, 10 cars on the lead lap. And his lead over second place, Scott Dixon, is now 0.6 of a second. There was nothing close about it. Ryan just neatly went around Danica and said, no contact this time. Thank you.
Her car certainly is not working as well as the leaders right now, but I've also noticed that Ryan Briscoe's car is working so much better through the turns than Scott Dixon's at this point in time. Dixon seems to be slowing down in the center of the turn, which is usually where you can carry some speed and make up time. Briscoe just seems to get about 2 car lengths in the center of each turn, but on both ends, tells me his car is not working well. And I know Dixon's in fuel conservation mode, but in my belief, we've seen this before, long runs, he fought the car. I think he's fighting it again, Marty.
Well, he is pulling away, Ryan Briscoe is right now. Second race he has led this year. The other was 11 laps back at St. Petersburg for Ryan Briscoe. And I'm wondering if, as he went by putting Danica Patrick a lap down, he flashed back to last week.
There was a crash coming out of the pits. Ryan Briscoe came together with Danica Patrick.
And for the first time in 4 tries here at Indianapolis, Danica Patrick will not finish the race.
Danica Patrick getting out of the car, and she is not happy.
She's walking down here, so just put your helmet, just put your visor down.
His fault, not hers. She did. It wasn't her fault. She did it. She was doing a good job.
Danica, from your perspective, tell us what happened.
From what I know, it looked like it was pretty obvious what happened, and probably best I didn't get down there anyway, isn't it?
Well, of course, that was the heat of the moment last week. Right now, you can see that he is well ahead of Danica as she is a lap down and now 2 seconds ahead of Scott Dixon. We talked to both of them when the cooler heads prevailed about last week.
I, as a driver, wouldn't even think to pull out of my pit stall and go all the way out to the wall, because the likelihood of somebody being there is pretty darn good. And it is what happened, and I moved over, and even moving out into for 2.5 lanes, 3 lanes out from the inside line was still not enough.
The worst thing about it was bad timing on all accounts, really. I think it was half a foot either way. The accident would have been avoided. My rear not kicking out a bit, Danica slowing down a bit. There's a lot of everything put together that could have avoided the accident.
So that was last week. Right now, with about 31.5 laps to go, we're hearing word that Ryan Briscoe may be coming into pit lane. And yes, the race leader is peeling off. So this will be his final stop. So he is the first to blink. And how long will this pit stop take? As it's a long way down to the far end of pit lane. We'll send it to Jack Arute.
60 miles an hour. 60 miles an hour was the speed limit. Now Roger Penske tells him to watch him. Watch him. They add fuel. They have got a problem with the left rear. The problem with the left rear is done. Rick Rennis having a problem. And it took at least an extra 4 seconds, fellas.
10.4 on the clock, Jack, and there is Scott Dixon as he goes blistering past Ryan Briscoe. Now remember, if a yellow comes out right now, Briscoe's day is toast. So he is hoping that this thing stays green, and there is Dixon coming up on Danica Patrick. So Danica technically now back on the lead lap.
What I liked about that was that Briscoe was coming up to a group of cars that were fighting for position. They were all a lap down. There was 8 of them, and Penske very smartly called his driver in because he knew he had to bring him in for one more fuel stop anyways. And instead of getting caught in that gaggle of traffic, he elected to bring him in and now hopefully put him out in an area where it's a little cleaner for him to continue running strong laps.
But the flip side of this coin, if you're Scott Dixon's camp, the longer you stay out, the less time you have to stay with that fuel hose in that tank. So that's going to make that pit stop shorter, as long as they don't have a mistake like what happened with Briscoe. Vince?
That's exactly right, Marty. And remember how we talked about Scott Dixon wanting to conserve so he'd have to fill less at the end. They're going to come in 7 laps for their last splash of fuel. They believe, or they're hoping, oh, they're going to get a yellow as we get contact.
No yellow yet. Vizo got very close to the wall. He has slowed, regained speed. He's losing some more positions. But right now, there is no yellow. So we're staying mean, lean, and green. And that is good news for Scott Dixon. 26 laps to go this time by. It is Dixon, Dan Weldon, 7 seconds behind. Then it's Elio Castroneves third, 8 seconds behind the leader. Tony Kanaan in fourth. Marco Andretti has fought his way back up to fifth, but remember, he is now 19 seconds behind the race leader. You're looking at Dan Weldon right now, and he is in second place, with Castroneves and Kanaan not too far behind. In fact, that is Briscoe trying to get his lap back. Remember, he's got fresher tires, so theoretically, if he can do it, that would help his progress. This action continuing now with 24 laps. Brianne, Danica Patrick's last stop.
Danica Patrick having a bit of trouble in the pit stall. It seems like there was trouble with the right rear tire. They re-lifted the car, got it back on, and she's out running again. She's lost precious time in the pits, guys.
Well, she had no chance of winning this race today. And there, Briscoe does get back on the lead lap now as you finish up. But you're right, it still hurts as she falls further back because of the bad pit stop. Right now, we're keeping tabs on Scott Dixon. A couple of times this year, he has lost races on the fuel economy run. Right now, it may be his fuel savings may be the big difference. Here comes his teammate, Dan Weldon, into the pits. So it'll be 22 laps to go this time by. Jack, let's send it to you.
Sure goes to work on Dan Weldon. It's going to be a monetary stop of just taking on as little fuel as possible. They've exchanged the tires and he is off on his way. Watch for Elio Castroneves to hit pit road next, guys.
All right, so we see all this action unfolding. Whose chances do you like the best?
You know, I don't understand with Dixon right now, fighting a car that's at the end of the run. He looks like he's heading into the pits right now. Why wouldn't he come out a while ago and run faster laps?
All right, Vince, he's coming your way.
Mike Hall reminding Scott Dixon to stop right on the board. Hit your marks. This is the time you've got to be perfect, whether you're the crew or the driver. Just enough fuel to cover the tires. They had a little problem on the right front, but away goes Dixon.
And 4 seconds better than Ryan Briscoe's stop. So Dixon back out onto the racetrack after making his final stop. And now we'll have to wait and see how it all sorts out. Elio Castroneves is your race leader. Meanwhile, Tony Kanaan has peeled off for his final pit stop. Castroneves still has to make his final pit stop. We can tell you Briscoe is in front of Dixon right now on the track.
And that's where I was going a second ago. With the speed that Dixon had, he was down to 150 miles an hour because he was struggling with his car late in the run. Would you not bring him in a little earlier to help him improve the car with the new tires?
Let's send it to Jackaroo.
Elio Castroneves having a nominal stop because he could pull right in front using his teammate's pit stall to make it straight in. A problem on the left front. A problem with Elio Castroneves' pit stop. Guys, it was not as costly. The problem was the gun hit the center lug just like on the left rear with his teammate, and it didn't spin, but they kept their poise and got him back out.
All right, so it still cycles through with Ryan Briscoe now shown again as the race leader. So Briscoe out in front of this race. And this goes back, and your point was well taken.
Now, Dixon runs better when he's got fresh tires on. Is he going to be stronger now than Ryan Briscoe? Could be.
A lot of traffic up front. That's Bruno Junqueira in the 18. Briscoe's trying to go underneath him. Right behind him is Scott Dixon. Oh, this is going to be good with 17 laps to go here at the Milwaukee Mile. Handling looks a little bit better on Dixon's car. And Junqueira got way up high, got close to the wall. No yellow, so we're staying green. It's Ryan Hunter-Reay, lap traffic. Briscoe goes underneath and Dixon to follow.
This is when your heart rate goes up, your foot's on the gas as long as you possibly can be, and you're looking for traffic. And Ryan made out with that situation there. Now he's trying to time the traffic up ahead. And he says, I hope the cars up ahead have their spotters telling them the leader is coming. Look how wide he was on turn 4, carrying the speed as much as he possibly could go. His lap speed there, 2 miles an hour faster than what we've seen recently, over 158 miles an hour.
As our Firestone lap leader, Scott Dixon has led the most, but right now he's not up front. It is Ryan Briscoe, but here comes Dixon. He's on the charge again.
Looks like Dixon can drive the car deeper into the turn than Ryan can. Ryan seems to be able to run that high line.
It looks like Dixon's better through 1 and 2. Briscoe's better through 3 and 4.
And it's a compromise when you set the race car up here. You cannot have a perfect car at both ends of the racetrack.
This time by, it'll be 13 laps. There's 3, 4, 5 cars in front that could play a factor in this race as we head down to the final laps here at the Milwaukee Mile.
And what's happening right now is the spotters for both Briscoe and Dixon are going to the spotters of the cars that are up in front and say, hey guys, give us a break. Let your drivers know that we're coming through. We're in a battle for the lead.
Roger Penske anxiously looking on. Ryan Briscoe. There's Mike Hull, the man who steers the number 9 car for Scott Dixon. Jack, you've got an update on Briscoe?
Like a good coach, Roger Penske keeps saying to his driver, be nice and smooth, nice and smooth. Getting through traffic is going to be the key here. Roger Penske checking the action because he looks down the long straightaway, and boy, you can tell butterflies have become bullets in the captain's belly right now.
11 laps to go. Mike Hull never changes his expression much at all. Very, very level-headed. Doesn't get on the emotional high or the emotional low, but boy, what a strategist. It is fun watching these two do battle.
Well, obviously with Dixon winning last weekend and getting so close in the points championship last year, now leading the points championship this year, second would be points towards the championship. He wants to win, absolutely, but this is about Ryan Briscoe right now. This is redemption. He cannot make a mistake. He wants to win this race because it's on pins and needles right now over there at Team Penske for the past performance that he's had here for many races.
That is Hideki Muto in front of our race leader, Ryan Briscoe. Muto, the last car on the lead lap, in 9th position. Well, we've got a quick moment. When, where did family members sweep the podium in our GoDaddy.com trivia for the only time in open wheel history? You know when and where? Nope. The answer is 1991, right here in Milwaukee. The Andretti family, Michael, John, and Mario finished 1, 2, 3. Meanwhile, back to the race action as it is Briscoe now with about a half a second lead over Scott Dixon. But again, he's still got lap traffic in front of him. Take a look at all the cars that could come into play. Jack, what's the latest from Briscoe's camp?
Roger Penske sees that traffic as well. He just told his driver, lots of traffic. You've got to maintain your focus and your smoothness. Let's see.
Here comes Dixon. He's going to take a look inside, says, nope, can't do it. Vince, what's the latest from Dixon's camp?
Mike Hull being very calm as he just gives Scott the number of laps remaining, but it's his spotter, Packy Wheeler, that's really communicating with Dixon the most, alerting Dixon to the traffic ahead of Briscoe, getting him prepared for the opportunity to make the move by knowing which drivers the leader is having to deal with.
This is rush hour at 150 miles an hour and down into turn 3. Briscoe gets underneath and around Hideki Muto, and Muto quickly lets Dixon come through as well. Dixon's going to try the high side. Briscoe goes low. Briscoe will hold on to the position through 1 and 2. So Dixon almost had a run on him, and Briscoe made the move to the inside. Now here comes Dixon again. Down into 3. This time by, it'll be 4 laps to go here at Milwaukee. The lead, 0.3 of a second that time at the stripe. Oh, a little wiggle from Briscoe.
He's driving the wheels off that thing a little higher in turns 1 and 2 than I'd like to see because the marbles are up there, but he's just trying to keep the speed up going through the turn.
That is Vitor Mira, 2 cars up. Lap traffic for the race leaders. 3 laps to go here at Milwaukee. Fuel's not an issue. Oh no, and a crash as Marco Andretti and Carpenter come together. Oh, and a car gets up in the air, it's Mira. More cars involved further back.
And was Ryan Briscoe ever lucky to get through that?
So Briscoe and Scott Dixon make it through the carnage with 3 laps remaining. There is Vitor Meira's car, the second time that car has been crashed this weekend. Our pole sitter Marco Andretti right behind him. And there is Ed Carpenter. Tough break for Ed. Ed was running 8th. Pace car is out.
It's a ton of debris on the race course, but with 2 laps left to go, the most important thing is not to drive over anything, to get a flat tire at this point.
So for Ryan Briscoe, who had his hands full with a hard-charging Scott Dixon, Mike Hall calling the shots for one camp, Roger Penske the other. And here comes the white flag and the yellow. This race will end under the caution. So Ryan Briscoe will win this event and become the 15th driver to win an IndyCar race for Roger Penske. He joins a list that includes Sam Hornish, Elio Castroneves, the likes of Mark Donohue, Mario Andretti, Rick Mears, Al, Bobby, and Al Unser Jr., Danny Sullivan, Gilles de Ferran. Pretty exclusive club to be a member. And there is Marco Andretti with what is left of his pole-sitting car, as we thought it might be a day for the young guns of the IndyCar series. But instead, as he comes out of turn number 4, it is redemption for Ryan Briscoe. A week after crashing with Danica Patrick, he will take the checkered flag and win here at the Milwaukee Mile with Scott Dixon close behind in second. Celebration for Roger Penske and his crew. Let's go back and see what happened in this crash with about 3 laps remaining.
Going into the corner, Marco on the low side, just drifts up just a little bit, catches Ed Carpenter. When it gets late in the race, you're going for position, and poor Vitor Meira always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that is some luck for both drivers, and nobody was seriously hurt.
Now look at this view. Look at Vitor come up and over Marco.
And then they just go parallel park on the wall beside each other. Never seen anything like it. Here we go again. Real time. And the smoke that was in front of Vitor Meira, he didn't know where he was going, just started to slow down.
That was out the back of Ed Carpenter's car.
There's Marco on the underneath. Both go up and touch. And there you see, just going up and over again, was Vitor Meira.
Okay, we're going on board with Vitor. Hold on, this is an e-ticket ride.
Ouch. That's like jumping a dirt bike. Oh my goodness.
Now here is Briscoe, and there is Vitor. Look how close he is to Meira. Oh, and he just gets by. All right, so Ryan Briscoe, the man of the hour, after being the scourge at Indianapolis for Danica Patrick fans. We'll talk to him when we come back. Back at Milwaukee, Ryan Briscoe's made it to victory lane. Vince Welch, you're there.
Ryan Briscoe celebrating his very first win as a major open wheel racer and getting the hug from Roger Penske and Tim Cindric. It's the 300th major win for Roger Penske and Penske Racing, and Ryan gave congratulations and thanks to Penske on the radio afterwards. You see it's a little body surfing going on here in victory lane. Ryan, come down here. Come down here. On the radio, you referenced 2 people. You referenced Roger Penske and Rick Mears. What did each of those mean to you today?
Well, Roger, I mean, he's just the man. Rick Mears, 30 years since his first ever IndyCar win. And I can't tell you how special this is to win my first IndyCar win on his 30th anniversary. So he's been so good to me all year long, and I wouldn't have won it without his advice here. So thanks to Rick Mears, thanks to everyone at Team Penske. It's awesome.
You've been under a little bit of self-imposed pressure, being 19th in points and some frustrating finishes. How sweet is it to get that pressure off your back with a win today?
It's nice, I tell you. I couldn't believe it, but the car was just magic today, and we just came through the field, and it felt so good. So this will help in the points, and hopefully we can just keep getting some front-running position for the rest of the championship.
A sweet victory for Ryan Briscoe today. Marty?
That reference to Rick Mears, Roger Penske won his first race here at Milwaukee 30 years ago. See you next Saturday night on ESPN2 at 10 p.m. Eastern for the Bombardier Learjet IndyCar 550 at Texas. Be sure to tune in Thursday night for Game 1 in the NBA Finals. That's 8:30 Eastern on ABC. And coming up next, it's ABC's World News or your local news except on the West Coast. Congratulations to Ryan Briscoe. For our entire staff, I'm Marty Reed. We'll see you next week from Texas. It's going to be a dandy. Till we meet again.